Hello and welcome to the Farming Today This Week podcast. I'm Charlotte Smith. Coming up in this episode, Dartmoor ponies in trouble.
It would be more than a shame if, after we've irreversibly taken out 75 to 93% of them, we then monitor it and go, oops, we shouldn't have done that.
Farmers struggling to plan.
Until you know what the rules are and when it's going to be implemented from and what transition arrangements look like, it's very, very difficult to prepare.
And where not to walk in a peat bog.
Oh, don't step there, that's a bit deeper.
We've all done it. Let's start, though, with a report out this week, which said there are jobs available in farming, fishing and forestry that aren't being filled because of a so-called skills squeeze. The study by Lantra, a charity which provides training and qualifications in land-based industries, comes a week after the much-discussed report commissioned by the government, which found job opportunities for young people are shrinking, with 1 million classed as NEETs, not in education, employment or training. So could land-based work be part of the solution? Anna Hill's been speaking to Nick Juba, CEO of Lantra.
Around 6 in 10 or 60% of some of our the people or the skills working in our sector, so forestry or fishing, for example, are facing elevated demand. So it means that we've got a real challenge in terms of getting the right people with the right skills to be able to deliver for the land-based sector. It's both a challenge with getting young people into the sectors, but it's also about giving those who are already working in our sectors the skills that they need.
What sort of help do you think the industry needs to improve the situation?
We don't have a national skills plan that says these are the skills that we might need in the future, these are the number of young people or workers that we have with them, and therefore we need to develop these other areas in order to meet economic need. And that's really something that we would like to see government support. They do that in other sectors within the industrial strategy, but we don't have that for land-based, and we think a better understanding, better data around skills and workforce would help us underpin that national skills plan.
We have recently had Alan Milburn's report on NEETs, on young people who are not in education or in jobs.
There is a genuine pool of high-quality, talented young people who could come and access some of the really exciting careers that are available in our sectors. So we would like to see, I think, better and more coordinated careers guidance and advice. It's not always easy for those who are perhaps not from a farming or a growing background to understand the breadth of roles and how things like agri-food underpins such an important part of key aspects of our economy like food security. So yes, we would like to be able to better to tap into that pool of talent.
Nick Juba there from Lantra. Peatlands can be a valuable carbon sink and provide habitats for wildlife and plants too. But UK peatlands face pressure from development, intensive land use and a changing climate. About 80% of them are degraded. Well, in Wales, the National Peatland Action Programme has carried out more than 3,500 hectares of restoration work. That's since 2020. And it includes the Cambrian Mountains, where it's been so successful that water voles have arrived in the area. Marie-Claire Carey-Jones joined Rob Bacon, a specialist officer with the programme, to try and find signs of their presence.
This site is Carnfleur. It's a peat mass that's formed in the bottom of a valley since the last ice age. We're getting an increase in the indicator species, so there's sphagnum mosses and cotton grasses and things. We've also got water voles.
And there's some surface water movement over there. Could that be water voles?
It could be. You often hear a plop if they drop out of their burrows into the water.
But they're quite elusive, aren't they?
Yes, I haven't seen one here to date. We just see the field signs of them. I was just having a look in here, and there's sort of, potential little passage routes through all the vegetation and stuff. And you see that there?
Oh, yes.
These will be bits of food that have been chewed up. Drop in there, I'll pick it up. If you look at the size of it, it's about the size of a generous tic-tac, and it's rounded on both ends. Those are a couple of water vole droppings. There's definitely been one around here, which is really nice to see.
Well, I'm joined here now by Dr. Peter Jones, who is from Natural Resources Wales, working on the National Peatland project. How important are the peatlands here in Wales?
Peatland habitats are of huge significance because they support a characteristic biodiversity, wildlife. They're also our most significant terrestrial store of carbon, and they play an absolutely vital role in regulating the emissions of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere.
Don't step there, that's a bit deeper.
So we've just risked the walk across here where we've got all the water because you wanted to show me some of the sphagnum moss.
So where we've got the deeper water here, this is a species called Sphagnum cuspidatum. Tends to form in waterlogged areas basically, but then back here we've got Sphagnum capillifolium. It's a really beautiful one. It looks like someone's doused it with a bottle of red wine. It's got a lovely colour to it.
And Pete, they play a really important role, don't they?
They're really significant because they hold around about 20 times over their own weight in water, and they're very good at hanging on to that water in times of drought.
So what can be learnt in terms of wider land management?
The places that do support peat, I think it's important wherever we can to manage those in a way that safeguards that really important carbon storage and hopefully carbon accumulation function. And that aspiration is completely compatible with a lot of other activity. So, for example, the vast majority of the semi-natural peatland resource in Wales occurs in agriculturally managed contexts, mostly grazing. That's a very important form of land use. As climate change really begins to bite in the summer, they've got the potential to support enough plant growth to sustain grazing longer into the summer season, and that's a really important part of the management of many of those ecosystems.
Dr. Peter Jones there from Natural Resources Wales. Now, lots of farmers are obsessed with soil, but Dr. Nick Wilson is a farmer who is also obsessed with what's under the soil. After finding a Roman burial site on one of his fields, Nick fell in love with archaeology and completed a PhD researching the local area. He's been showing Rebecca Rooney some of his finds on the farm in the Vale of York.
Welcome to my cabinet of curiosities.
So we're opening up one of the farm sheds, big grain store, and there's piles of grain in the background, but in the foreground and on pallets are rows and rows of artefacts. These are all your finds.
So in front of me now, it's red sandstone, and it's huge. It's about 65 centimetres long, 35 centimetres wide and about 30 centimetres deep. So this is a quernstone. You would throw your grain on here, and in your other hand you'd have what's called a rubber, and you would just push it across this surface. Now, saddle querns date back to the Neolithic. People were growing corn and grinding it within this landscape. We're doing exactly the same thing potentially 6,000 years later. So tactile.
So we're walking right through your field of winter wheat, but you're in charge, so that's all right.
Okay. It was back in 2007 where actually in this field we found a Roman period burial. It was a lead coffin, and it was in an oak casket, which was then contained within a stone-built kist, and within the coffin there was a 94% complete skeleton. Absolutely fascinating. And we're just pausing now because we stood right on the site of where we found it.
And I'm amazed you know where it is, because we are literally in the field of wheat, and I can't see anything to give away where this Roman burial was, but you're getting your bearings from the landmarks.
Bearings from the landmarks, and I can also see the crop is a bit thinner here, and this is where the hole was.
And where is that person now?
So the skeleton itself is in boxes in storage in York. The lead coffin itself is in the English Heritage Store at Hemsley.
Do you think about him and who he was and what he did as you're planting this field?
Every time I come past this field, I think about it, and I think it would have been fascinating to be able to speak to this person and say, well, what were they doing over there? You know, what the collection of cobbles, what buildings, what structures, what beliefs? Where did you live?
Do you feel a bit sad that he was disturbed and it wasn't his final resting place as he thought it would be?
I struggled with it to start with. When the team had built a cradle around the coffin, I lifted it out with the farm loader, and it was a very strange moment, because I was reversing a process which had been undertaken 2,000 years ago. And in my mind, I could see the funerary party, probably a cart being dragged with this heavy lead coffin on it, the mourners with it, maybe a feast to have at the site of the burial. And I wasn't doing that, or was I? Because as you look across the fields now, we look across the Vale of York, there's a fantastic viewpoint up here. These people wanted to be remembered. And for nearly 2,000 years, they'd been forgotten. By excavating and taking out this coffin, we had brought this person's memory back to the present day. And I think, had they been able to choose something like that, I think they'd have settled for it.
Oh, fascinating stuff. Farmer and archaeologist Dr. Nick Wilson. You can hear more about his finds on this week's On Your Farm. That's here on BBC Radio 4 at 6:35 tomorrow morning, or you can, of course, catch up with it later on BBC Sounds. This week, the government published fresh guidance for farmers and food businesses to help them prepare for a new agreement between the UK and the EU. The Sanitary and Phytosanitary, or SBS, agreement is expected to come in about a year's time, and the government says will make it easier for British farmers to sell into the EU. But it could also mean a change in which agro-chemicals farmers can use on their crops. And if the rules change suddenly, there are concerns that farmers could be left with crops grown under the old rules, which they can no longer sell under the new ones. Well, Anna Hill's been speaking to the president of the National Farmers Union, Tom Bradshaw.
Well, for a lot of our members at the moment, this feels quite abstract because they don't know exactly what rules are going to be in place. They don't know whether we're going to lose access to plant protection products, which they're busy using in their fields at the moment. We don't know what transition arrangements are going to look at, which will impact what products we can use next year. We don't know whether we're going to have a carve-out for things like gene editing, which we're really pushing for because the UK could be genuinely world-leading in that area. So while the government may be saying it's important that you plan, until you know what the rules are and when it's going to be implemented from and what transition arrangements look like, it's very, very difficult to prepare.
There are a few things that we've moved away from the EU, haven't we, since Brexit? For instance, gene editing, precision breeding, as it's known also. How much of a barrier could that be to future trade?
I don't think it should be a barrier at all, Anna, but so much of this depends now on the politics of the EU. The EU are suggesting that they want to adopt that technology. And what I'm pleading with EU counterparts that I'm meeting and EU ambassadors is please don't apply the handbrake to the UK. Please don't stop us progressing with research and development in those areas. Because if you genuinely want access to this technology in the EU, then if you successfully stop us, it could be years before you ever have the ability to take advantage of it. Whereas if the UK can forge ahead, then the pressure is on the EU to catch up with us as quickly as possible. And we desperately need that EU market. To make a go of gene-edited crops, we're going to need access to the EU market to make it scalable and make it something which is an attractive investment for our seed houses and our plant breeding companies.
What about the transition period? Farmers and food producers are being alerted now, saying it's going to come in mid-2027. But if it isn't transitioned in gradually, it'll be basically a cliff edge, won't it? Is that going to happen?
CropLife International did the modelling around the cliff edge scenario for plant protection products and suggested it could cost over £800 million to the industry. We have been absolutely clear with DEFRA to spell out where we see the need for transition arrangements. But if there are no transition arrangements, it's going to be very complicated because the grain that's going to be harvested this July and August may well still be in stock after the deal takes place. So we need proper transitional arrangements to make sure that we can use up the products that are already in store and the crops that have been grown using those products which aren't currently registered in the EU. And it's not to say that those new products, that new chemistry isn't safe. It is absolutely safe for the user, for the environment, for the food that's being produced. But our regulatory system has worked, whereas the regulatory system in the EU hasn't yet got those products registered.
Tom Bradshaw from the National Farmers Union. Well, in a statement, DEFRA, the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, told us our food and drink deal could add up to £5.1 billion a year to our economy, slashing the costly red tape and removing unnecessary barriers for British food and drink exports to our largest trading partner. It goes on, this government is making it easier for British farmers to sell our world-class produce to European customers, support jobs and help ease pressure on food prices price inflation for families here at home. MPs on the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee are preparing a report on the challenges facing upland farmers in England and how the government can best support them. It comes as the Farming Minister, Angela Eagle, confirmed in the House of Commons this week that 2027 will be the last year farmers in England receive direct subsidy payments based on how much land they farm and known as the Basic Payment Scheme, or BPS. The payment has been reduced every year since 2021 as England moves to a public money for public goods system, where farmers are paid only for the environmental work they do. The transition to new post-Brexit schemes has been slower in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, with those direct payments continuing. Well, in England, direct payments have been particularly important for upland farmers in areas like the Lake District, where it's being replaced by new environmental schemes. This year and next, the most any farm will receive in direct payments is £600. Caz Graham's been speaking with two generations of a Lake District farming family.
Matthew Fearon and his partner Ruby farm in Borrowdale, surrounded by crags and just a stone's throw from England's highest mountains.
There's just a group of yows and lambs. I've marked them up. They've got a smit mark and a lug mark and they're ready to go back up on the fell.
They took on a 15-year tenancy with the National Trust 18 months ago. Before that, Matthew's parents, Gavin and Laura, had farmed here for more than 30 years.
Lie down! Lie down! We've got 400 breeding yows and 150 followers, and we keep a few cattle, fueling cattle, but we're just trying to build the cattle numbers up at the minute.
But yeah, it is amazing. It's nice to be on a farm. I'm not originally from a farm, so it's a little bit different for me, but we're running the campsite and the pods as well, so there's plenty going on for both of us.
In terms of support from the government, what kind of support from the government do you get? What schemes are you in?
We're in a HLS scheme on the inside ground that we inherited from Dad, who was a previous tenant here.
That's a higher level stewardship scheme.
Yeah, so we've got things like the hay meadows, areas that we don't graze in winter, and the woodlands were in a scheme, but they're not in a scheme at the minute. And then the common is also in a HLS. It's on a rollover at the minute.
And would you like to get into more schemes? Because I know that some upland farmers cannot get into schemes at the moment.
Yeah, it would just be nice to know what we can and can't do. We're kind of a bit up in the air at the minute with the schemes and what's going to happen.
There is a lot of younger, passionate people wanting to make a real good career out of this, keep the traditions alive, make it profitable, try and make the businesses work without too much support, and then the support kind of comes as an extra if it's there.
Well, you took over the lease of this National Trust farm from your mum and dad. Your dad is with us as well today, and you're still farming, aren't you?
Yeah, still farming, yeah. We were lucky enough to buy some land at Keswick and we rent some and still have a stock of sheep on Cap Bells.
In recent years, the Basic Payment Scheme has been a really important source of income for a lot of farmers, particularly upland farmers. With the phasing out of that, I mean, what has that done to farm incomes?
Oh, it's a massive impact on farm incomes. We were taking quite a bit of money with that and it is a massive hole left. We just were left in complete limbo.
We've had this transition from the old EU payment system into the new payment system brought in by the government. That was supposed to be quite good news for upland farmers because it was all about public money for public goods, you know, supporting clean water, supporting access to the countryside, all that kind of thing. Do you feel it's worked out well for upland farmers?
No, I don't think it has really. There will be payments there and I think payments will come forward. But I think the biggest problem is that transition's taken so long and also it's getting more difficult. Land that comes up, whether to sell or rent, because some of the schemes are favouring non-grazing. That's another knock for somebody who really wants to farm.
So we're just down here next to the campsite. So we've got one camping field that's drive-on field, so it takes camper vans and tents. And then our other field is tent only, so it's lovely. It's almost like wild camping. There's a car park next to the field.
How important are these ventures to your farming business now?
Since we've come in, we're focusing on the fact that the farm is profitable. Without the campsite, I want to really work on us producing food and people having a local connection with food, buying it direct from us, especially with our beef and lamb. But obviously the campsite, the pods, the sauna, it all helps take the pressure off from like the profitability of the farm.
You've never had the basic payment scheme that your dad and lots of upland farmers have had to help support their farms. Do you think there's a future for fell farming without it, Matthew?
Yeah, I don't think any scheme will ever be perfect. We're going to need some sort of support to help us do what we're trying to do, because a lot of our ground is triple SI. We're restricted on what we can and can't graze. If people are going to put them restrictions on us, then we really need supported through that. People just want to get on and farm. Things are being so complicated at the minute with the schemes. Everybody's kind of getting a bit lost with it and thinking, oh, we just want to push on and farm sheep.
We want to produce food for this country, but also support this lovely national park that people want to visit. So it's a dual aim, and with a little bit of governmental support, you can do that better.
Reby Nicholson there in Borrowdale. Well, let's stay in the uplands, because a familiar sight to many who visit Dartmoor are the famous semi-wild hill ponies which roam across the moorland. But concerns have been raised that new agri-environment schemes will require such a steep drop in the numbers of grazing livestock that 90% of the ponies will be lost. The management of Dartmoor, including the amount of grazing and the state of triple SIs, that's sites of special scientific interest, has been much disputed in recent years, leading to an independent review commissioned by DEFRA, which reported at the end of 2023. The number of Dartmoor Hill ponies has dropped from 6,000 25 years ago to just under 1,000 today. That's according to the Devon charity Friends of the Dartmoor Hill Pony. Joss Hibbs is secretary of the Dartmoor Hill Pony Association.
Well, the Dartmoor landscape is shaped by the fact that we have commoning, we have hill farms, which have a right to graze their livestock on our Dartmoor commons. And 10% of our commoners still keep the tradition of having a family herd of semi-wild Dartmoor Hill ponies. They are very much part of the landscape. They've been here since the Bronze Age. And obviously our visitors who come today love to see them.
And why will these new grazing contracts that are being proposed by Natural England, why will they have an impact on the hill pony population?
The new contracts demand a huge reduction in livestock numbers across the board. They will require all livestock to be cut by up to 75%. And for the first time, Natural England has decided that the number of ponies will be included in those numbers alongside the cattle and sheep. So as well as having to cut their cattle and sheep by 75%, now our commoners have got to squeeze their ponies into that number as well. Ponies, when they're competing with cattle for the right to stand on Dartmoor, obviously cattle and sheep are commercial, that's what pays the electricity bills of our commoners. It is always the ponies that will be going first. And we think that we could lose up to 93% of our ponies because of the combined impact of an overall reduction in livestock numbers and the ponies now being counted in.
You know, environmental campaigners have argued for years that parts of Dartmoor are very overgrazed, and Natural England would say that they've assessed the level of grazing that the moor can sustain and that, well, the ponies graze. They have to therefore be considered alongside cattle and sheep. Is that not fair enough?
We had an independent review of how our ecology is managed, commissioned by DEFRA in 2023, and it found that vast areas of Dartmoor are in fact undergrazed. On Dartmoor, we are peculiar because we have been reduced to a monoculture of millennia grass. So we now have one dominant plant that has overtaken high percentages, 80% of our land mass. Dartmoor Hill ponies will eat the millennia grass. Not everything will, but they are so adapted to this landscape that they will actually eat the millennia grass, which is currently reducing our biodiversity to a monoculture.
DEFRA says that the impact on pony populations will be continually monitored for any adverse effects and that mitigations will be explored to ensure no further reduction in population numbers. So they're going to be monitoring it right from the very beginning, aren't they?
They need to be monitoring it now before the numbers are reduced to such a catastrophic extent. It would be more than a shame if, after we've irreversibly taken out 75 to 93% of them, we then monitor it and go, oops, we shouldn't have done that. So again, it's not ponies or cattle. We have to have both. And the answer lies in what's happened before, which is where we have an agreed number, an agreed size of population of Dartmoor Hill ponies running in the background whilst the contracts deal with the cattle and sheep and the commercial livestock. Because we can't go backwards. Once they've gone, they've gone.
Joss Hibbs there, Secretary of the Dartmoor Hill Pony Association, talking to Caz. We did ask DEFRA about this and they told us we're working with partners, including the Dartmoor Hill Pony Association, to help ensure that we maintain numbers of semi-wild ponies on the moor for generations to come. Well, that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Joe Pesey and Farming Today This Week is a BBC Audio Bristol production.